Like, it's an agony beyond hell is the closest I can get to describing my husband leaving for work and then 4 hours later dying on the street.
You see a struggling body still just barely holding on. You do kind of believe that maybe they're holding on just to soak up that beauty that surrounds them for just a little bit longer.
Putting on funerals is kind of like putting on a little show. I cremate people all day. I get remains prepared for ID viewings for the family, just to look at them one time and then for them to say goodbye.
Recently I lost my mother. The only way to describe it is I'm 64 and I've never been on this planet without my mother. I don't know how to do this. It's strange. As a farmer, doesn't matter if you have 2 animals or 30, the responsibility is still the same. They have to be taken care of. They have to be fed. They have to be watered. Everything changed when she got sick. For 2 years, I was at her house taking care of her instead of here taking care of this place. But we managed. We just did it. But then after she was gone, then for the first year, you're just so busy. You don't have time to think about it. The house has to be emptied and sold. The people that want some of her stuff, make sure they get it. Pay the bills, close the accounts.
I played this a lot. I lost my husband, Zach Godwin, just over 2 years ago. So the answers I needed most was, what am I supposed to do with this pain? Like, I remember people saying they can't imagine. And I was living it going, I can't imagine either. Dissociating happened often. PTSD, panic, dread, and terror, or I was crawling out of my skin. It was just horrific. And so when I was looking in scripture, I just kept thinking, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Which led me to look at biblical figures that experience grief and loss, like Jesus' mother Mary, where she watched her son be tortured and crucified. That's a pretty good example to look to for what am I supposed to do with all this pain? And she became the example to me of a suffering witness. Concern with widows and grievers that I have spoken to is they just need a witness. They don't need someone to fix it. We don't need someone to say things like, they're in a better place, or you're so strong, or you're gonna get through this. We just need someone to cry with us and say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Pain needs to be seen.
Funerals help people by giving them closure. And not everybody does have a funeral, but for certain people who need that closure to see the body, if they didn't have that, then it would kind of be like that person is just on vacation or just not around and they're just out there somewhere. But to have that closure of seeing the body, seeing their ashes, and having the words said, it's closure.
Having seen someone suffer or know that they are suffering and watching them be released of that pain and truly feeling like they are at peace and they are at home and believing that they still very much are here with us. And that gives me great hope.
My own mourning and remembrance rituals are really important to me because when someone dies, your relationship with them doesn't end, which was a shock to me. They're not there anymore, but it's still there. And so part of that is I have pictures of him everywhere. I have his studio as a memorial to him, the little meditation rooms where I visit him, and it's full of really special things to us, and his bones are in there, and it's important for me to be with them. And sometimes when I'm in a really heavy grief wave, because it never goes away, it just, sometimes it's like you dip your toes in and sometimes it pulls you out to sea. I go in there and I hold his ashes close to me, and I have his things in his bedside table that I sleep with sometimes when I need to feel close to him. And it's funny how people will look at that and think, you know, you should stop wearing your wedding ring, or you should take the pictures down, or maybe you shouldn't do that anymore. You already feel like a part of yourself has been severed and you're looking for that phantom limb Why not have their presence around you to remind you it was real? Because that's another thing grief does. It's like they're not here. You don't really know where they are. There's not a tangible place. And then you start to question, were they here? The connection of here and now with them is gone, but they're not really gone from your life, so it's hard to place where they've been. So for me, in this house, this is where we moved to start our life together. This is where he lived with me. This is where I need to be because I'll never let go of him.
And I remember looking up to my mom in the car and saying, "Mommy, I can't wait to die." And she said, "Benjamin, do not say that." But she didn't understand that it was just my curiosity. I was just so curious as to what happened after death. I believe that our society here in America doesn't talk about death enough. People get so uncomfortable about it. So when it happens, it's like a train wreck. And they don't know how to think about death. I think about death all the time, and when I hear people that have died, I am sympathetic because I understand that like people need that in that time. When somebody in my family dies, I know that I will miss them and grieve in my own way, but I will also rejoice because I know that they are in the love and light of the universe.
Everything that led up to that passage is so important, and I got to experience being by the side of two women who I dearly loved, my mom and my aunt, and I walked away from it thinking like, that's how you do it. You bid farewell to this earth with a sense of gratitude, and you leave others behind with this feeling of hope, and then it's not so scary.
I was on and off the streets, in and out of rehab, jail. He asked me, "Are you ready to get off the street? Are you ready to get out?" And I was like, "Yeah."
I was estranged from my wife. I had no job, no home. When I was coming into the program, my wife said she didn't love me anymore, didn't want to be with me anymore. And a month later, she's talking to me about wanting to renew our vows. And all I can say is God.
In the simplest terms, the Cookery is a cafe. It's a meeting place. It's a place where the poor save the rich and the rich save the poor. And it's a culinary teaching facility that also rescues people from extreme housing or circumstances and gets them back to life restoration.
Right now, what they would call me is a student, but I cook and I clean and I learn and I pray and I do everything, a little bit everything. The Cookery is it's really just a love project, you know, built from the ground up on the basis of helping people, not just feeding people, not just keeping the restaurant open, turning a profit, networking, but at its core, this place is here to help people. My therapist told me that I have what's called an unsatisfiable mind, and like, ain't that the truth, you know? But if you talk to anybody that knew me out there, they wouldn't recognize me here. I laugh, I joke, you know. I am remembering who I used to be.
I am labeled the executive director and head chef, but I'm happily cleaning the toilets any day of the week. We have Bible studies going on. We have people sharing life. It's, in essence, for me, a meeting place as well as an eatery. But while they're here, they're getting, hopefully, a level and aptitude of food that is so excellent that it also spurs on the question of what is this all about, which leads to the second and more truer intent of the cookery, which is to help people get their life back. It's right now more centered on homelessness and life recovery. I went through homelessness too. And it's to reach back to those folks that are suffering through that. And everything's free. We give them free housing. We give them free teaching. We give them management level training on food safety that's recognized around the country. But the biggest thing we do is community service, as well as learning the culinary. We take those same folks to go out on the street. We shut the restaurant on Saturdays and we give free food. But the biggest aspect of us giving free food, it's not just, hey, we've got a sandwich to comfort you in the moment. It's, we see where you're at. Come on, we have a place for you. Counseling's free, clothing's free, medical is the best we can afford it, dental is the best we can afford it. All these things are free. And we also give them a stipend each month. There is no money changed hands because it's an investment in themselves. And we have found that the greatest achievement in people self-actualizing is when they really feel the challenge, the impartation, and the overcoming. So we don't take away the essence of the struggle of learning. We funnel that and try and institute the direction towards their highest possible self. But even more importantly than the sandwich is we offer them a way out. It's hard to establish trust in those moments, and sometimes it takes a few visits. But it's more than just a momentary relief. There is a way out. And if they are not convinced by my words, the boys who were just out there a week ago with them make the perfect ambassadors.
It's not just some place where you can come to learn culinary. It's where you can come to be restored and have your life flipped upside down for the better.
They are working really hard to find the right balance.
The steel frame of a building all of a sudden is covered in glass. There are still people that live in our community that are trying to make it. Everyone talks about traffic.
It's been challenging. We've seen a tremendous amount of appreciation.
Roads are certainly a challenge. And
strong presence of police officers. We have all benefited from Nashville's popularity one way or another. It's a really competitive place to live. I think just the physical changes to our Nashville skyline say it all. I drive in from the west side every day, and sometimes I will, let's say, take a holiday vacation and come back and the steel frame of a building all of a sudden is covered in glass. And that has been going on for all 7 years that I've been here. I have seen turnover over and over and over again in our downtown, and working in the downtown neighborhood allows me to get a first-hand look at that. I have also bought a home in Nashville, and I bought my house in 2019, and I'm so grateful that I did, because I listened to my peers who are having a really hard time buying their first home, and I'm grateful that something told me in my gut now's a good time. So I just think I can not look too far back and see how far my money stretched in 2019 compared to now 2025. And I realized that all of the added offices and office workers in Nashville have made it a really competitive place to live.
Nashville is such a fun city to watch and grow. Nashville as a whole, but then also all the additional suburbs that are surrounding us. It's just been explosive growth.
I think every neighborhood is more expensive than it was just a decade ago. And what we see is that some of the neighborhoods that traditionally have been for lower income families, people from out of state in construction industries, builders, developers with deeper pockets have come in and scooped up some of that land and built homes that the neighbor next door could never afford to live in.
It's gotten expensive to buy a house with the prices and interest rates. So it's definitely changed a lot in the last, several years with that kind of explosive growth.
You see a lot of patchwork almost in neighborhoods. You'll see 4 homes in a row that look the same. They look like they were built in the 50s and 60s when the neighborhood was established, and then you see 2 that were built in the last 2 years. So that's a really visible example of the change.
It's been challenging. We've seen a tremendous amount of appreciation in our property values, and so unless you've owned a home and experienced that growth, it is hard to afford.
Nashville is a pretty affluent, successful city. If we look across other cities that are similarly sized, like Charlotte, North Carolina, Austin, Texas, Nashville wins in a lot of the categories, but there are still people that live in our community that are trying to make it, and I think that the pandemic highlighted some of the gaps.
I think it's hard for cities to accommodate that kind of explosive growth. Our infrastructure in particular is really struggling.
Everyone talks about traffic.
Roads are certainly a challenge, and the Tennessee Department of Transportation is debt-free, and so that's part of the struggle that they go through.
When we say Nashville's infrastructure, at the end of the day, Nashville might be Davidson County, but think about everyone from Rutherford County, Williamson County, Wilson County, Sumner County that come in and use our roads and call our police. I do feel like Nashville could use a little shot in the arm, but that's going to take council people all being on the same page and the state working with the city of Nashville, and that relationship is a little tense. Nashville and the mayor's office, the mayors over the last few years have really tried to make Nashville downtown, Nissan Stadium, Bridgestone Arena, welcoming to people that live in other zip codes.
There's a reason I don't live in New York City. There's a reason I don't live in Atlanta. Like, I don't want Nashville to become something like that. I don't want it to be such a big city where there's too many headaches.
I think naturally some people don't like what they see in the commercials or the New Year's Eve crowds. They feel like that's what Nashville is putting out for the world to see, and that they don't relate to that image.
They are working really hard to find the right balance in keeping the local residents happy and providing the infrastructure for new growth.
So a couple of years back, the Metro Nashville Police Department went as far as dedicating an entire unit of police officers to work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evenings in the downtown entertainment districts. So they recognized that they needed to have a strong presence of police officers, and not just police officers working overtime. They didn't want exhausted police officers. They wanted people that could get to know that part of the community and really focus and learn about it and be there week after week. We have all benefited from Nashville's popularity one way or another.
I hope that we continue to be a fun, dynamic city that people want to not only come visit, but that they want to come and live here, raise their families here.
There's something that you're fed up with, just go and talk to the person in government who represents you and tell them about it rather than, being behind the keyboard. I think if you are thinking about moving to Nashville, I think that what you should do is get out in the community. Go to the library, eat at your local restaurants, get to know the people, spend your money places where locals, longtime locals, also like. I have a feeling you're gonna like it too.
And I hope that we all the newcomers and the people who are here continue that same warm Southern hospitality that we have, and being inclusive and welcoming people when they arrive.
I think immersing yourself in a Nashville neighborhood is going to create a lot more friends than enemies.
So I become Nelly la Naranja, and he becomes Xander la Zanahoria.
I do like the idea of having bilingual books in my class,
which makes him a dynamic character in our story.
A lot of the elementary schoolers only speak Spanish, and it would be easier to help them learn English.
My name is Meredith Yund. I'm a junior at Brentwood High School, and I'm currently co-writing a book with my friend Abhi Patel.
It's been a long process, but we're really excited for it to get out there soon and for people to read it.
This whole story started in our Spanish class last year, which was Spanish 3 with Senora Putman.
Hola, I am Senora Patman and I teach Spanish 3. Well, since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a teacher. I was always teaching my nieces and nephews, and now I remember that I used to love illustrate, and I would get every single notebook in my house. And I went to school, and I was in front of a classroom, and in front of the students, and I thought, this is what I really want to do. So when I moved from Lima, Peru to Franklin, Tennessee in 1991, I had the opportunity to teach Spanish, and then I fell in love with education. I fell in love teaching Spanish.
It's midterm exam day, and Abhi and I find out that we have to write a children's book story based off of a fruit. So I want the carrot, Abhi wants the carrot, and we argue until we decide we're finally gonna draw straws. Who gets the carrot? And I lose, and he's like, well, you can be an orange. Those are orange, just like carrots. So I become Nelly la Naranja, and he becomes Xander la Zanahoria. Nelly's story is pretty fantastic. She's an adopted orange into an all-carrot community, Xander's family. Xander is her new stepbrother. And in all honesty, this new community, as well as Xander, holds many prejudices against Nelly that she has to overcome in our story.
Basically, he's very nice, he's very kind to other people, but he's hard about change, which makes him a dynamic character in our story because he cannot accept that Nadia la Naranja has been allowed into his household, so he's very stubborn about the entire thing. And so when Meredith's character, Nadia, is adopted by Xander's parents, he's kind of overwhelmed, right? Because his parents, who have always loved him and cared for him and put him first, are starting to put Nadia first and care about her more.
What Senora Putman told us to do was come in once a week and read some stories for children in Spanish, read some articles, and eventually I stumbled upon a website that had different kinds of Spanish books. They were children's books, but they had interesting stories that were applicable to real-life scenarios. Now, the first article we read was probably the most meaningful for me and Abhi. It was called La Ballena y el Pájaro, and that's the whale and the bird. It was a very sad story about the whale and the bird falling in love, but being too different to be together. And that taught us a lot despite the fact that it was a children's book and really inspired us to write our own. Our book isn't primarily in English or Spanish. It's pretty much equal, right? So we're gonna have 2 titles and then 2 lines on every single page, which means for children in both English and Spanish-speaking communities, they can come together and learn all at once.
I do like the idea of having bilingual books in my class because they can compare the language. They can see the cognates that there are in English and in Spanish.
Hi everyone, I'm Averly Nielsen and I'm currently working with Meredith Yunt and Abhi Patel. I am illustrating their children's book that they're writing called Carrot and Orange. And so I was the one who was like, oh, wouldn't that be fun if I illustrated it? I've always been really into art, so it kind of seemed perfect. And they ended up thinking it was a great idea and actually following through with it. So they came back and asked me later to finish illustrating it once they had written it. So I currently volunteer at a club at our school called Empower Nashville, and Empower Nashville works with Nations Ministry Center to help tutor kids of immigrants or refugees who are currently living in Nashville. A lot of the elementary schoolers only speak Spanish, and it would be easier to help them learn English if you could have direct correlation between the languages.
We live very close to a big metropolitan area in Nashville. And Nashville is honestly, it's booming in population, but with more people coming, we see more diversity flowing in the metro area. So we want this book to affect not only English readers, but also to help kids whose first language is Spanish.
For publishing, Abhi and I were a little concerned about what to do. But we decided we wanted to do it as cheaply and effectively as possible, so we went to the first person we knew who had published a book.
Hi, my name is Disha Javgal. I'm 17 years old. I go to Brentwood High School, and I am a published author. I've published 1 poetry book and 3 children's books. I publish through Amazon KDP, and it's definitely a very user-friendly platform, and I think for any other aspiring young author, they should definitely use that to start.
Additionally, we're opening a website specifically for our book to be read, where you can have the English to Spanish translations clickable on the dock. I'm actually making the website, which features my computer science development skills, as well as our book writing skills. Anytime that you buy the physical copy of our book, we're going to be donating the profits to a nonprofit like Empower Nashville.
Espero que disfrutan el libro, which means I hope you enjoy the book.
Press 1 for more options.
Hey Jeremy, it's Dave again. Boss was asking where you were again, and I didn't know what to tell him this time, so whenever you get done with the hiking trip, we kinda need you back here, and just come back safe, okay?
This is a story about a simple man. A man by the name of Jeremy Tennant. He's just your average guy you'd expect out of his hometown of Debreuville, Ontario. He comes from a well-kept family, and he works as an accountant for Smithson's Plastic Containers.
Oh yeah, well, my name is Dave. Yeah, I worked with Jeremy at Smithson's Plastic Containers. Still there to this day. Shouts out.
However, despite all this really boring background information about Mr. Jeremy, he actually does have something pretty interesting about him, and that would be his obsession with nature and his YouTube channel, where he documents himself going on hikes in the Ontarian wilderness.
Morning, camp crew. Jeremy here. I'm out here in the beautiful Ontarian wilderness. Over the next couple of days, we'll be hunting for food building a shelter, and, most importantly, camping under the beautiful Canadian stars. Let's go.
Information in the search for a missing Army veteran. Police now tell 10 News that Julia Jacobson...
Yes, that's right. On what was supposed to be another one of Jeremy's hiking trips, on December 13th, 2018, Jeremy would not return.
Well, when I got the call, it was about, gosh, I don't know, 7:28 p.m. on a Tuesday. The wife had just finished her steak and potatoes. Boys were down for dinner. And everything was feeling nice that night. We picked up a tip on where he went from one of his co-workers. Guy at Smithson's Plastic Containers, if I remember right.
Yeah, well, I informed the police about which way Jeremy went. I put him down the trail and everything. Actually, Jeremy asked me if I wanted to go on the trip with him. And I told him, I said, Jeremy, look, man, no offense, but hey, two guys going alone in the woods, I mean, like, Jeremy, that's gay.
What? The police started their search at the trail that Dave had mentioned. They followed the path until they discovered something interesting.
Well, when we got to the bag, we saw all sorts of things in there. Food, water, extra clothes. But there's this one little thing that stood out. We found his camera. Smile on my face that night would have lit up the sky like fireworks. Well, the boys finally got it hooked up to the monitor. I was happy as a clam.
So, we're making our way through the bramble right now. It's really hard to get through here, making big steps and all, without getting tangled. Almost as hard as surfing the internet without a solid sense of security. That's where our sponsor, NordVPN, comes in.
Man, I must have seen a couple new bald spots that day. I mean, there was nothing. Nothing, not a single clue.
With the contents of the belongings being proven absolutely useless, the police decided to deploy a 5-mile search radius around the belongings. But that too would fall short of anything useful. With that, the police concluded that due to a lack of evidence, Jeremy was suspected to have been murdered and had his body removed from the area. And thus, the case went cold.
You ask me, I chalk it up to bad resources, cheap funds, and empty pockets. Plus, I kind of just got bored of the whole thing. I mean, it's not really interesting, honestly.
With that, it appears that the case has been closed with no clear conclusion to Jeremy's whereabouts. However, there may just be one more thing that could bring this story to a close. Okay, can you just tell us your name and how you got out here?
So I'm Jeremy, I camp around here. Found me.
Yep, that's right. Boom. After nearly 6 years of being missing, Jeremy Tennant has officially been found. Alright, can you just tell us, how you ended up out here?
I was, filming a video, and I kind of got lost. So, I guess I decided, best thing to do was maybe pick a direction, just walk that way, until I found something. So I picked a direction, and I kept walking, and yeah, there's not that much out here.
Huh. With this exciting revelation now in play, we decided to take this intel back to our interviewees and ask them how they felt about the situation. So would you care to find out if he's still alive or not?
Nope, not at all. Honestly, I got fired from my job because I kind of sucked at it. But even still, I really don't care what happens to that guy.
No, I mean, he kind of sucked at his job, and well, I still kind of think he's gay.
Dude, you gotta stop saying that. So do you even care that you even found?
I mean, no, not particularly, I guess.
Or do you want to go back home or? No. All right.
Okay.
And with that, the case of Jeremy Tennant has now been closed for good.
I like Diddy's music. Is Diddy still doing good? Is he doing all good in the music? Because I mean, he had some pretty good. I liked his songs when I was in civilization.
No.
What do you mean no?
Nah.
I don't know.
Nah, man.
Not making music or not fell off the grid.
I'm stopping this one.
Things went wrong, and we'll have to live with that for the rest of our lives. I feel like they also unleashed something that was not meant to be unleashed.
In a world overrun by mysterious and invisible forces, some seek to know more. Some look deeper, in between the lines, and in between the lies. Is any of this real? Look no further. I'm John Boone Calhoun, and this is Ghoul Finders.
Walk me through how that day began.
Okay. Well, it started off like any other day. We were filming. We were filming for my docu-series, Ghoul Finders. And I mean, really everything started off normal, but I mean, there was just no way to predict how that day would end.
My name is John Boone Calhoun, and today we're going to be exploring the property of Edward Puckett, supposedly haunted. I have some ghost experts with me. I have Jake along with Bick Mass, and yeah, we're going to see what we find. So before me we have the grave of Edward Puckett, an individual born in 1771, lived 58 fruitful years until 1829, until he was killed by a revolt by his slaves. As you can see, his property, this was the Puckett family home, what's left of it. So, as you can clearly see, this building is quite dilapidated. This is actually where the Puckett family home was. As you can see, it's falling down, and this is actually where the slaves first came in and infiltrated while they were sleeping, and quite frankly, murdered all of them. The building, it's falling down. Alright, so as I said earlier, today we're exploring this property with some ghost experts. I'm gonna tell them, or let them tell you a little bit about themselves and what we're hoping to find out here.
Well, anyway, me and my mom got in this really bad car crash, and I broke both my arms on impact. And one day, I was laying in the hospital bed, and I really had to itch my belly button. So I started to pick my belly button, and I realized both my arms were broken. So who was really picking my belly button? Yeah, that's my story. How about you, Beck?
Yeah, so, when I was a wee little lad, I was going out, and I was with my sister, and all of a sudden, she was gone, and I saw the faint outline of a ghost. It really took me for a toll. She was just taken from me. I never saw her again.
Those are the days, man.
So I went there to the Puckett family home with some ghost hunters, and I brought them there to help me to kind of determine what happened there and why it might be haunted. And I feel like they did help me, but I feel like they also unleashed something that was not meant to be unleashed.
So the first abandoned building we'll be exploring today is this little kind of barn shack looking thing. When we go inside of buildings, we usually like to switch to night vision for a better viewing experience for y'all. All right, so we're about to move in there with the night vision camera. I don't have a light, so this might be a little bit difficult for me, but I'll do the best I can.
Oh, don't you worry. I have a light. Jig, grab my flashlight.
What, of course.
Oh, God.
Don't worry about that.
Okay, move up with the night vision. All right, so night vision has been turned on. We're moving into the building right now. I don't have night vision, so I brought this flashlight so we can see. I brought some experts with me as well. Guys, what are we looking at in here? What are we seeing?
So you can see because of the decay of the wood that there's definitely a ghost. So we're gonna go to step 1. Sense of presence.
We're gonna sense the ghost?
We're gonna sense a presence of a ghost.
To see if he's here.
To see if he's here.
Okay.
So
how do we do that?
We're just gonna ask, are you here? Alright, so I'm getting mixed signals. I don't know for sure, but that could be a sign.
Okay, so what else do we have here that can point to a ghost?
You see that there's some broken glass. We know that's not natural, okay? We can see there are some other jars around, so we know that was something. So we've angered it. There's definitely a ghost here.
That's bad?
That's very bad. We should probably get out before it gets a little more.
So after we were finished exploring the first little abandoned building that we had, we were about to leave, and then there was this bang on the wall, just echoed throughout the room, and then Jig let out this horrible scream. It was just pure fear, and at that moment, we should have left. Like it should have been over there, but we didn't, and the following events transpired.
So, now that we are at the next location, these ghosts keep moving. You can see this green tint on the wood fading into the dark. That means that when these ghosts, they stay around these pieces of wood, they're aging, causes this wood to fade into a different color. Ain't that right, Jig? Yeah. Alright, so you can see also inside that there are fallen objects that look like they could have fallen from a ceiling. Normal things do not fall like that, so that means that they were on the top and a ghost came by, passed through the wood, causing that green tint, and made things fall down. We can see all this broken down wood that can also be caused by ghosts, because when they hang around this stuff, as I said, it can wither away and fade and cause things to fall off.
What are we looking at here, Beck?
So you can see these fallen pieces of wood are usually meant to be clipped on. That's how these houses stay up. And you can see nails being torn out. Normal nails do not just normally come out unless the ghost is around, because this metal reacts with the ghost and it causes it to force it out of the wood. So we see signs all around of ghosts causing these things to fall down. Yeah, so now we're just gonna keep looking. Ah! Yeah, we should probably go. Go. All right, well, we should be safe in here. You can see the architecture and the holes in this steel roof. That blocks ghost power. They can't get through here. Ain't that right, Jig? Jig?
Wait, what is that? What is that? That's his hat.
Oh, shit. That's
Jig?
That's his hat. Jig! Joe, Jiggo! Oh.
Jig?
That was good.
Jig? No, I'm
Jig! Jig! Go! Jig! Oh. Yo, he's really angry now.
What's happening? What's happening?
So, the ghost is angry. He possessed Jig. He's trying to possess us now. So we gotta get out of here. Jig! Jig! Wait, there he is. Now there's a chance that the ghost could have left his body. Are you okay? Oh no, he's not okay. Go.
I'll never forget the moment that I turned with the flashlight and I saw Jig in the corner just spazzing out like he was possessed. And then we just ran, really. It was probably the scariest moment of my life. And I don't think I'll ever be able to forget it, really. In hindsight, we should have left when we first experienced those paranormal events, but we didn't, and things went wrong, and we'll have to live with that for the rest of our lives. And it's tough, but at the end of the day, you gotta move on. Gotta move on.
You know, ever since losing Jig, it's been really hard. It's really hard to go on without him. It's just, I've left ghost hunting behind me. I've left everything. He really was the only one that got me through the day, and some days now I feel like giving up. It's really hard without him. It's impossible to keep going without him. I miss him so much.
Thank you for choosing Chick-fil-A. This is Joshua. How may I serve you?
Why do people go out to eat?
Alright, what size fry? We can do small, medium, or large.
They don't want to eat at home, but they don't want to go out somewhere where it's, terrible food. So they're looking for an experience.
My pleasure.
What is that experience? Why are we doing this? Why do we do what we do? Besides just making a buck. Pretty simple stuff. Serving people. So that's what it's all about. The secret is letting us do our job. And most of our job is dealing with people. True was a great mentor to show us what we should be doing, how we should be doing it.
Following his service in World War II, Truett Cathy opened the Dwarf Grill in Hapeville, Georgia. Here he humbly served burgers and steaks. 20 years later, he founded the first Chick-fil-A restaurant in Atlanta's Greenbrier Shopping Center. Unlike any other restaurants at the time, the fast food restaurant was based upon morals and principles that attracted many customers and widely expanded its outreach.
I was retiring out of the Marine Corps. Didn't really know what I wanted to do at that point in time, but I knew I wanted to be in the hospitality business. And I looked around at hotel, motel, restaurants, all that kind of stuff. Came across Chick-fil-A and shared some of the same values I had as far as closed on Sundays, how we treat customers, quality of the food. And the business arrangement was a very unique, very encouraging, and something that I thought I could really enjoy doing.
The dream of becoming a Chick-fil-A franchisee owner is sought after by many, but it's hard to obtain.
Last year there was over 50,000 applications to be an operator, and they hired about 110. And then once you get through that process, it takes about anywhere from 2 to 3 years now to get through that process. It's very, very intense. "27 years ago, it wasn't quite as hard as it is today. Back then it was more of a handshake with the founder, Truett Kathy. It was more of a very simple process. It took about 3 months for me to get through that process. And so yes, it has become very, very competitive because quite frankly, this is a great job to have. It's really not a job. It's more of a lifestyle.
So Bill landed the job by opening his first 700-foot small mall store in Asheville, North Carolina. Just 2 years later, Bill moved to Franklin, Tennessee and opened his first freestanding Chick-fil-A, built from the ground up.
Most of my time is spent with the upper level management, trying to encourage them and set the expectations with them. Most of my time with the young people now is pretty much high fives and slapping them on the back and shooting the breeze with them. So I don't do a lot of the training anymore. I don't do much of the hiring anymore. Most of my time is leading the senior leaders and then encouraging the younger guys. It's just a very, very unique business because Chick-fil-A expects me as the owner-operator to be in the store working with you guys.
After his store's 19 years of success, Bill started to look at a second store, a rare feat by Chick-fil-A owner-operators.
Why do you own two?
Well, the opportunity, number one, to serve more people.
From there, Jason applied to become a Chick-fil-A franchisee, just as Bill had done, but was unsuccessful. He then launched himself into a ministry career, where he and Bill still stayed close. After 17 years of an exciting ministry career, Jason's life was about to take a 180.
I can pay people better with 2 stores. I can raise more kids up into leadership with 2 stores. I think it's important for young people to work, period, when they're in their high school years. It prepares them to communicate. It prepares them to understand what it means to serve. But Chick-fil-A does a great job at setting those expectations.
A Chick-fil-A employee is responsible for meeting these expectations every day, which is why Chick-fil-A is so successful in the first place. But it can't be easy when you work for the #1 ranked busiest fast food restaurant in America, averaging $8.1 million per store annually. So how does Chick-fil-A battle the stress when the rush hour begins?
The secret is you don't let anybody know you're stressed out. You know, I used to work at Disney World way back in the day when they first opened up in 1971 and 2. And they always called it, "You're always on stage." And that was their favorite saying, you're always on stage. And it's kind of the way I teach these kids here, and some of the, and the management, is that the community, the public is always watching you. No matter, if you're out front, even if you're in the back sometimes, they can see you back there. So you got to keep your game face on all the time. Even if you've had a terrible day, even if things are blowing up around you, someone's got to stay calm. And that's what I've tried to teach my management staff, is that you guys are in charge, you guys are the leaders. You've got to keep yourself under control and be very, very smooth and keep your emotions out of it and stay very professional.
A Chick-fil-A employee's duties do stack up, but it's easier when you're surrounded by people that, well, the kind of people that work at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Founder used to say, if you're breathing, you need encouragement. And that's true. Every day is a different day. We all come in here with personal problems. We all have lives outside this store. We all have issues. We all have needs. And this is kind of a family. And it needs to be a safe place. And that's one thing I think appeals to a lot of our team members and our management.
How long have you worked at Chick-fil-A? 17 years. Everybody coming up here is really happy here because the number one certificate, like customer service, make everything great.
And there's been a lot of restaurants in Cool Springs that have gone out of business because they just can't figure out how to be nice to people. And that's probably the number one thing. You gotta serve people with a smile.
So a couple years ago, there was scrutiny over Chick-fil-A and its values about being closed on Sunday because it's Christian. How did you deal with that when that came up? Was there any backlash against you or your stores?
No, there wasn't. In fact, that was back in 2012, actually, that we went through our founder's son actually had an interview with a Christian magazine and made a comment of his personal beliefs, and that was taken totally out of context. Chick-fil-A wants you to run this as if you own it, so it becomes very personal to you, and it becomes very much your reputation as well as Chick-fil-A's reputation. So you do take it very personally. You take the service that we give people, the reputation that we have, you take that very personally.
With the new knowledge of their personal connections to Chick-fil-A, I decided to ask Jason and Bill if they would ever consider working anywhere else.
No, no, never. Ever. Why do we do what we do? Besides just making a buck. We're here to serve people. And that whole vision of service. You know, people buy into it, it works. If they don't buy into it, like you said earlier, they don't last very long.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't last very long in the future either. Because that's what it's all about in life, is serving other people.
Mm-hmm.
Not being the selfish one, not being the one that's all about me. It's all about other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes the world worth living in.
The war in Vietnam started November 1st, 1955 to April 30th, 1975. There were 2.7 million American soldiers who served, and over 350,000 of them died. Out of those 2.7 million soldiers that served, we got to look into one story from a military chaplain named Wayne Reed. We got to hear about some of his experiences, some struggles, and how he had to live life differently overseas.
I received orders for Caramel, Turkey. It was a 3-year company tour. I was single. A buddy of mine with the same MOS, military occupational skill, Roger Coonsey, had orders for Vietnam, and he was married with kids. So I called personnel and quietly got his orders switched with mine so he could take his wife and sons with him to Turkey, and I went to Vietnam. The thing that shocked me wasn't the heat when I got off the plane, it was the smell. Every non-vet that I've ever met had the same reaction. What is that smell? The next thing that got my attention was the hardware cloth over the bus windows. The buses that took us to our next location, the 90th Replacement Depot. The hardware cloth was to keep the Viet Cong from throwing grenades and firebombs into the bus windows. So he asked me how I liked the heat, and I asked him when it was going to get hot, and he said, "This is it." I said, "Man, you scared me. This is like Houston, Texas, where I grew up." Pete, well, Gray's registration was getting to him. He didn't smoke or drink when I knew him in basic training, but he was lighting cigarettes one on the other. He had yellow stains between his fingers. He was drinking straight Scotch whiskey at 11 in the morning. I was assigned to the 8th Radio Research Field Station in Phu Bai in I Corps, south of Camp Eagle base camp for the 1st Brigade of the 101st Airborne. My second night at the 8th, we came under mortar attack. It was then that I learned not to sleep on the top bunk. Mattresses over your head are helpful. I learned to sleep in my BDUs. You don't want to dive into a trench line in your skivvies. I learned to keep my boots, helmet, and flak jacket nearby just in case we got hit again. When I signed into the post, the chaplain snagged me to assist him because I had earned the assistant's MOS while waiting for OCS, even though I was trained in an intelligence MOS. My first unit visit with the chaplain was via Jeep on QL-1, which extended the length of South Vietnam. We went to Quang Tri, came under small arms fire just south of Fire Support Base Carroll, just south of Quang Tri. Road traffic was at a standstill because of the ambush. I quickly shoved the chaplain out of the Jeep. He landed behind a log while I scanned the roadside for enemy firing at us. I was able to get up and return fire without either of us getting hit. The chaplain got skinned up from my pushing him out of the Jeep. He joked that I needed to sign his Purple Heart paperwork for a skinned-up elbow and a bruised shoulder, even though I was peppered with dirt kicked up by rounds hitting near me. My duty was to assist the chaplain and to protect him. I carried an M14 or an M16 rifle, had a .45 caliber pistol, occasionally a .45 caliber submachine gun, as we visited units as far north as DMZ and as far south as Da Nang, often by Jeep and occasionally by chopper. On one trip, we got trapped in Hai Van Pass as a firefight raging down below us. F-4 Phantoms were firing rounds against the enemy, and it was quite a circus. I went on R&R to Australia, landed in Darwin, and was the hottest place I'd ever been. The hotel, I got my first hot bath in forever. I got hot coffee, and I couldn't stand the quiet. There were no nightly artillery, mortar, and small arms fire. So it was kind of deafening.
It's been here for 30 years. It was opened by an individual, so like privately originally. But when the BCA hospitals bought out the Murphy Road Animal Hospital, then they kind of absorbed this place. So now we're owned by the vet hospital across the street. Nashville has a pretty bad stray problem, whereas we only take in puppies and kittens. That's basically the litters that those strays are having. So people call us when they find dumped litters, typically is where they come from. There's a lot of kids and families who come in here multiple times a week. We're just like a stop on the block, just like they might go to the park, or for ice cream, they stop here too. It's good socialization for the kids. Saturdays are the busiest days because that's when the whole family's able to come and the kids are in school. So Saturdays are a little different. There are times of the year when business is a little slower. Right now, for instance, with the cooler weather, I think maybe people just don't want to have a puppy that they're going to have to potty train and take outside a lot. I'm told that they got hundreds of applications during COVID. Yeah, it was a really good time for the puppy adoption business. This is the end of the day, but in the morning when I first get here, they're all in the kennels here, and so it's like really loud. They're just all screaming at you. It's a lot of poop and a lot of pee first thing in the morning when you let them out. But after breakfast, everyone calms down. And I mean, some days I can be sitting here waiting until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock for anyone to come in, and then other days there could be just people in here wall to wall the whole time. It really just depends on the weather and if school's out and a few other factors. Right now we're about to give them dinner, and then we're going to put them back in the cages. So that's the sad part. They're in these for the 16 hours that we're gone. But they're puppies, so that's part of the reason why we only take puppies, is it wouldn't be fair to an older dog. But when they're young like that, they sleep more. It's usually when there aren't many people in here, but yeah, they nap maybe 3 to 4 times a day. We only exclusively take in puppies 6 to 12 weeks of age, and kittens also 6 to 12 weeks of age when we have them. Now they do stay here and get a little older than that sometimes, but they stay here until they get adopted. So generally speaking, about 6 months of age is the oldest I've ever seen a dog be here together. I mean, there are plenty of shelters and rescues in the Davidson County area, but we're, I think, the only one that exclusively does puppies and kittens. So while a lot of places will take in bigger dogs or older dogs, we're able to help with the smaller ones, and sometimes even like those rescues and shelters aren't really equipped for puppies and kittens. So when they get in litters like that, we can pull from them. Not to get too attached to them, but I definitely, I mean, I love them all in my own way, I mean, some more than others, but yeah, I mean, every now and again, it's usually the ones that get stuck here that are the last of that litter that I was talking about. I feel bad for them just because they're getting 4, 5, 6 months old, and they've only known this one little room. Might be here for a day or not even a full 24 hours, and others might be here for weeks, and for some others it can be months. Someone has to be last in the litter. So yeah, I mean, on average though, I would say maybe 3 or 4 weeks. I try not to take in more than I know what we can handle. So I mean, people will call every day sometimes, and I have to tell multiple people a day no sometimes. But that's just so that I know I can give them, you know, attention that they need and not be overwhelmed with too many of them.
Today, we are exploring the deep culture and personal significance of black hair. For centuries, hair has been an important and powerful symbol for black communities. It represents creativity, identity, and it is a connection to heritage. By sharing personal stories and reflections on beauty and resilience, we work to celebrate the roots of identity.
I didn't know what else I was going to do. So I've always had a talent for hair and cutting hair, so I decided to just go to school for that and at least try to make a career out of it, because there was nothing else at the time that I thought that I would be interested in. Throughout history, hair has allowed African Americans to express themselves in ways that they wouldn't be able to otherwise. A lot of it is all about how they feel in the moment. African Americans change their hair a lot depending on their mood, and so, I mean, throughout history, that form of expression has helped them sort of be who they want to be.
There are many hairstyles that help signify black people, such as the afro, dreads, silk press, and cornrows. Hair braiding dates back to at least 3000 BC. The art of African hair braiding all started with the Himba people in what is now known as Namibia. It is believed that the braids they did signified their age, wealth, tribe identity, and their religion. Many years later, people of Africa were taken as slaves. While they were enslaved, they created maps and escape routes with cornrows.
Well, during that time, African American hair was, it reflected what they were going through. So styles became straighter and less curly or less kinky in order to reflect their white counterparts, in order to fit in better.
Later on in the 20th century, afros were a massive symbol of beauty for African Americans. To this day, black people are still supporting and using the same.
Well, I mean, earlier, you know, you did see a lot of people with straighter hair, with less kinky texture. Now, people are embracing their natural hair a lot more because it's become a lot more accepted in the mainstream media than it was, say, 20 years ago.
During the Civil Rights Movement, these hairstyles became a symbol for Black pride, and they help represent our cultural pride, resilience, and self-expression. These hairstyles connect us to our roots. The origins of these different black hairstyles have many different meanings and many different traditions, and it's sort of a self-expression thing that can be expressed, like, because you can express how you feel, where you want to be, who you are through your hair.
How do you feel about white people getting black hairstyles?
I feel as though it's to each its own. I don't think the hairstyle should be gatekept. I feel like if they want to get those type of hairstyles, that's their business, and I mean it shouldn't be anybody else's business. People have gone against the grain with their hairstyles, especially like in the 70s with like the introduction of the afro and the more natural styles, which were not accepted in most workplaces or work environments, and people still decided to wear their hair in these styles as a protest against what was considered acceptable and not acceptable. So, I mean, African American hair has caused a lot of, for lack of a better word, drama in the corporate world. And in order to rage against that, people have decided that they were going to do whatever hairstyle they wanted.